Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to be sculpting our canopy. And I've been doing some more reference searching, and I think what I'm going to do, and I want to explain why I'm going to do it this way, is I'm actually going to do a lot of the work in 3ds Max to give us a base, and then I'm going to do a similar workflow to how we did our trunk, where we kind of block out a base and then take that into Zbrush, put on all the finishing touches, and instead of decimating everything, we will bake that down, bake our canopy down to some cards. So for our tree, I think the way that I'm going to approach this is, if you guys can imagine a very top-down view of this particular leaf cluster here, it would kind of almost look like a crazy umbrella shape. In terms of like it would be a circle. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna approach it that way. Usually when I'm doing trees, I can sculpt out a branch and then add leaves to it and stuff. But obviously this is a different case here, and so I just wanted to do a little sketch to tell you guys what I'm talking about. So turn my brush here. So if you can imagine that this is the very top of our tree, I think the way that I'm at least thinking the best way how this will be able to be done is if we just do, almost like a top-down view like that, as such. And you end up with this circular octopus-looking thing. But the idea behind that now would be, if we have that top view, we bake this down to a card. So like this is our quad here, and then essentially we subdivide this maybe a couple times, put a couple edge loops here, and we start to pull these verts up. Sorry, these ones would be pulled down, and then the outer ones pull up, and then the outer edge gets pulled back down. So essentially it almost looks like that, if that makes sense. Anyways, this is just how I'm thinking that would be the best way to do this. The good news is that if we do our canopy this way, we can always just break off chunks of it and then even add that to, like, I don't know, like maybe we lay out our sheet down here and we have another piece over there. But the main thing is going to be this main guy, right? So again, I was considering doing this in Zbrush. However, I think it's going to be easier for us to do this in Max or Maya, whichever you guys prefer. And I'm essentially going to approach it the same way that I approached this trunk. So I'm going to give this a go and see if it works. And hopefully it does. And if it doesn't, we will come up with a different method. So let's get started. Let's go into here and go into our shapes. We're going to be using our line tool again. And let's say we're going to I'm going to take our side, actually no, because what I'm going to end up doing is rendering this as rectangular. And you'll see why in a second. But for now, let's just draw a line. So line, and then let's say let's say it's like that. And I'm keeping my trunk in view so I can just do it, you know, as we're making this, I can be aware of scale. So here's our line. I'm going to enable this in the viewport, the rendering option. And right now it's rectangular, right? So if I look here in perspective, we can change these options, right? Length, width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our length all the way down to 0. So this way it gives us a rectangle, right? Alternatively, I guess we could have just done this with a plane, now that I'm thinking about it. That's okay. So let's actually, you know what, that's probably better. Let's just do it that way. I'm just gonna drag out a plane, turn my endpoint snapping on. Actually, no, I'm gonna turn that off. Something like that, right? And I'm taking into account, I mean, these are pretty thin leaves, but they are long. They're like almost stringy, and they taper out. So let's, for now, let's take our link segments down only to 1 each. Okay, I'm gonna convert this to an editable poly, and then let's just kind of, I'm thinking about this as the widest point. I want our leaves to be at their widest. I want it to be a little bit thinner than that. So I'm just gonna take that in. And then I'm gonna delete this. Let's add some edge loops. Let's say for now we have, sure, 5. And right down the middle, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to connect all these and give us one down the middle, and I'm gonna bring that down to 1. Okay. And right now I'm just trying to give us our basic shape. So obviously it kind of tapers inward as such. And if we do our soft selection over here, and we decide to use it, let's say the fall off is the very end. So like right there maybe. And then let's just kind of scale it inward like that. So that's a pretty good working shape for just a leaf of this tree. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And so also we're gonna use this middle segment here. I'm going to first turn off soft selection. I'm gonna double click that. And then I'm gonna pull this downward just a tad, because actually, you know what? Let's pull it up. Yeah, because you'll notice that it has it's very hard to see, but there's a little crease in there, and now that I'm looking at it, I think we should pull it down. So it very slightly has a little dip in it. So let's trust our instincts and pull it downward just ever so slightly. And this is going to be our base leaf, right? And you'll start to notice why we're doing this in 3ds Max first. It's because we can very easily and quickly control a very basic shape. And the idea would be to bring this into ZBrush and start to manipulate it, you know, to where each blade looks different, and you know, some of them have these crazy curlies going on, some are straighter than others, things like that. So what I'm gonna do now with our base leaf is I'm going to just set this right there, and then I'm going to create a duplicate because I might need to come back to it later. Not quite sure yet. I'm going to affect my pivot and then bring this down here as such. So now I can hold shift and ever so slightly rotate, right? And in here, what we can do is we can set our number of copies to go all the way around and have it be radial, basically. So I don't even know how much this is going to be, but let's say like 30. See what that looks like. Yeah, so 30 isn't even enough. It is quite busy, but that's good. I think that's good in a way. Maybe what we need to do is we need to go, let's try 10 degrees. And then let's set that to 60. Yeah. Okay. So actually, because I upped the degrees to 10, we don't need as many. So let's try 30 again. Okay, we need a little bit more than 30, and I'm sure if we were doing math, we could figure out how many we need. I don't really care right now. That's fine. 35? Sure. And there might be duplicates. I just want to make sure. Okay. So this is our basic shape, right? And what we can do is just kind of show you what I was talking about in the in my little Photoshop demo with my sketch. Let me just attach these all together really quick. Attach. So let's say all these come in and they're all attached at some point. I probably should have done this from a list. That's okay. And then the reason why we added these subdivisions along the middle is because we're going to select these and do a nice soft selection again. Something like that. And pull this down. And then we're going to do the same for each one of these. And then we would pull. So it looks like we're going to need more subdivisions, but you can start to see what I'm talking about is if we start to rotate this stuff and we start to get that shape, that's kind of what we want. That's how the best way that I can see this working for us. And of course, all this gets baked down to a set of cards, and then we bring those cards up here and we start to add our canopy, right? So that was just a quick little demo showing how I think I also wanted to convince myself that this was going to work. So we'll figure out how to get that really nice bend later once we have our texture to work with. But that would be the basic principle. Okay. Let's delete that. And then let's go back here. It might be good for us to make like 1 or 2 versions of these. I mean, the main point of going back into Zbrush would be to start to manipulate each leaf and have it look different from the last. But we can kind of get a head start on that if we do it in Max. So I don't know. Let's say there's a long one, and then there's a that's our long one. Then there's a medium one, and then there's a short one. And then this automatically will kind of already give us some variety. So let's say these are our base shapes, like right here, like that. Let's copy this. I'm going to move my pivot to each one. Oops. And then let's kind of 10 degrees. That's fine. And again, a lot of this, I guess the reason why we're doing it this way is so that we can limit our amount of work that we have to do in ZBrush. So like we did before, let's do a nice radial copy. Let's say that this one's like 20. Let's give ourselves like, I don't know, let's try 15. Okay, that's fine. And then, so that was our medium one. Let's do the same thing here. Let's give ourselves 15 again. They might start to overlap, but that's okay because we're just going to fix it by hand. And then we'll do another one at like, let's do 15 again, sure. Okay, now it's starting to look like a little sunburst. But now we can kind of just start grabbing some and rotating them over others to where it's not like long, medium, short, long, medium, short. You know, let's try to start to. Oops. Oh, and I just realized that. Oh, that was weird. So just trying to help us get a head start, and we're gonna be like bending these and manipulating these in ZBrush, of course. But this will kind of give us a nice variety starting point. I'm starting to think I made the long one like too long, but let's see what it ends up looking like, and then we can kind of decide from there. Cool. Okay. Now I'm trying to think if we would need a thickness to these, and I want to say no, because we're actually, you know what? Maybe we do. Maybe we do need a thickness. Okay. Let's do this. I'm gonna hide unselected, and then this is just an easier way to attach your objects, because if I go down here to attach by list, it will only populate this list with visible objects in the scene. Okay. And then now what we can do is we can add a shell modifier to this and make it very, very, very thin. Oops. Shell right there. So let's make it, I don't know, let's try pull it down a little bit. Yeah, because it doesn't need to be super thick. Like, that's probably fine. Let's say 0.01. Cool. Okay. This middle part is kind of a mess. I think what we might end up doing is we might dynamesh this, and that will rebuild the topology for this piece and allow us to start to manipulate this mesh with different poly count. So let's do this. So let's say that this is our starting shape for now. I'm going to convert that to an editable poly. I probably should have made a duplicate so I can still retain the shell modifier. Let's just keep a copy of it over here just for safekeeping. Let's convert this one to an editable poly. and then go 0, 0, 0. Let's export that. Data, projects, ponytail, and then let's export this as an OBJ. And let's call this O1 underscore ponytail palm underscore, or sorry, ponytail palm canopy base. Let's save that. We don't need materials in our library. Cool. All right, so let's jump into Zbrush. And I'm hoping this will work. In my mind, I'm thinking that this is a method that should work. It's kind of similar to creating grass. If you guys have ever done grass cards or seen people do grass cards before, essentially you would render out like three or four different views of the grass patch. One would be the top, one would be the left, right, and then you just bake those to cards and then kind of arrange them in such a way. But let's before we start this, let's go to our document size and then uncheck constraint proportions, and let's change this to a 2048 by 2048 because we will be rendering this out as a texture. So let's hit resize. I like to zoom out like that to where I can just see the window. So let's import. Go to projects, and then OBJ, and let's grab our canopy base. I'm just going to click and drag, hold shift, and then go to edit, and then let's just change our view here to where, yeah, is that right? Well, let's try it. Yeah, let's just say that this is. It's hard to tell right now, but we will eventually figure it out. So, okay. So if I were to go into geometry and just hit divide, it would start to. Actually, that's not too bad. I was expecting it to be worse, but that is not bad at all. So we have quite an amount of resolution here. And I'm just making sure, so if I were, let's just say I went back to clay tubes, our old trusty pal clay tubes. I just use this as a test to see how much geometry I actually have. So you'll see that it's kind of jagged. If I turn off wireframe, it's quite jagged. So I might divide this like one or two more times. And you can also tell just by the active points. I mean, I would say just kind of be aware until you get into like the millions. See, like I think that's plenty for what we're doing right now. So, cool. So let's just say that this is our starting point. Now what we want to do is we just want to start moving and arranging these in a way that we think looks good and that we can work with. It might be a little difficult to try and get some of those like curly cues in here, but we can definitely try. And I'm thinking that I'm just going to start off with the move brush. So BMV. I'm going to change my stroke to freehand. And then kind of like bump up my draw size. So you can see that this lets us start to move our blades our leaves. And maybe you guys can start to see why I felt that starting in 3ds Max would be a good idea. Because just naturally making these shapes, you know, in Zbrush would be quite difficult. And I'm already not liking the look of this. It just kind of looks like a like a wavy octopus or whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's go back. Maybe the move tool isn't the best thing for us to do. Maybe we can. I kind of want to try move topological first, because this is just the move tool. Let's try BM, I believe it's T. Move topological. Yeah, here we go. So let's see what this does. That's okay. I'm just gonna press OK. So you can see as I'm moving this stuff, it's not really retaining like the thickness that we wanted. And that could be an issue. In fact, that is an issue. So I gotta think now. And you can see that move topological is only gonna move like what our initial click hits. Yeah, this is not working out. Let's take this back a little bit. I just want to try one more thing before I throw this whole approach out the window. Let's get our subdivisions back. Okay. I don't even care about that one right now. Sure. Let's try one more thing. Let's try, let's go to deformation, and then I wonder what S bend would do. Yeah, not gonna do much. In the X direction, in the Y direction. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe it's gonna be too difficult to control all of these leaf pieces at once. So I think what might need to happen is we might need to bring in just one, right? Just one leaf, do our little sculpt to it, and then we duplicate that in ZBrush and start to arrange them around. I mean, that actually doesn't look too bad, just as a start though. But again, think of like if we wanted to go back in here and we wanted to add like let's say damn standard BDS, change this to freehand. You know, like what if we wanted to come back in here and then add like a little bit of a definition to our leaf? Like doing that to each one is just going to be ridiculous. So let's scrap this for now, and let's delete that. It'll take us back to a sphere. I'm gonna go back to 3ds Max, and then I'm going to just oops. I'm going to extract just this guy. So I'm going into element mode by pressing 5 and then just going to go into detach. And now we don't need that because we saved our stack over here, but let's export this as our main leaf. So let's go to File, Export, Selected. We could even overwrite this initial one because I don't really think we need it. And then let's hit Export. Let's go back into Zbrush. Let's go into Import and then import that guy again. Okay, cool. So here's our one leaf. And let's just do the same thing. Let's go back to geometry and let's subdivide a couple times. Divide, divide. You can kind of see that since we pulled those verts down, it's naturally giving us that shape, that tapered shape. Let's divide a couple more times. I think per leaf, maybe 10,000 points is probably the max we want to go. But again, let's just check to see what our resolution is. That's not too bad. The reason why I'm not going up to like 1,000,000 points is because we need to remember that this is going to be like, you know, how many leaves are there going to be here? So multiply that by at least 20. So you know, the other thing too is we could always just decimate one piece, just to where we have that definition. So I'm going to divide one more time. Okay. Let's zoom in a little bit, and then let's do something like that. Maybe a little bit smaller. No. Let's divide again. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my Z intensity down to where it's not super insane. I don't need it to be crazy. That I can't even see. Let's say like 11. And I just need this to be able to be picked up by the normal map. Because let's just say like that, and then let's change this to a normal. So yeah, I can see that quite well in the normal. This particular material isn't hyper accurate of what the normal map material should look like. The way we see that is we would render best, and it takes a little bit of time. So I mean, I can see that. So let's go back to render. Where did you go? Render. Let's just go back to preview. Let's change our material back, and then let's Control Z. So one way that we can get a nice long indentation on this leaf is we can go up to our lazy mouse, and I think I mentioned this earlier. Let's go to stroke. Let's go to lazy mouse, and then let's bring our step almost to nothing, like very, very small. Bring our smooth up, and then lazy radius, let's bring that up to. So what lazy mouse does is it allows you to make kind of broader strokes without it picking up every single little movement you make. So that's good. Let's go to, let's bring that up a little bit more. So you can see when I bring our radius up, once I click and I drag, it's slowly following me as such, right? And that's what lazy mouse does. It kind of lets you be a little bit more accurate with your strokes. I might even bring it up all the way. That's good. Okay, let's go back. I just want to check my reference one more time. Oh goodness. It's very subtle here. Maybe it would help if we look at our our reference board, obviously. But you can see, I mean, honestly, we are really just kind of pushing it by even doing this. Like we could probably just leave it flat and no one's really gonna notice. But I think this is kind of a cool thing that we can add, and maybe nobody will see it, but we'll know. So let's very subtle, very subtle. And I'm just dragging all the way down. And then I'm just gonna kind of meet back up where it was. The good thing is that no one's really gonna see this. um, but I'm a perfectionist and I like to, there we go. Cool. So let's go back to our normal map, and then yeah, so you can kind of see that indentation now. We got a little wobbly, but no one's gonna ever see that. Cool. Okay. Now I think what I want to do is I want to start to manipulate this particular leaf by itself. So I'm going to bring my draw size way up and then go back to our move topological. No, maybe the regular move would be better. BMV. Yeah, okay. So all I really want to do is I just want to kind of make very subtle differences. So, maybe it kind of goes off to the left and then it comes back to the right a little bit, just like that. Right? I think it would be a little bit more natural than that. So I'm just kind of like shaping this thing as I'm going, and this is one that kind of does a little wavy, and then, that's it. So let's duplicate this one and move it out of the way. Oh man, I'm so spoiled by my work has the newest ZBrush and it doesn't have this stupid move tool. Let's alter this one a little bit. Let's kind of make him longer as well. Um, I don't want like too crazy of a flow here, but something like that could work. It's not too bad. And as I'm looking at this too, I might want to like exaggerate this taper a little bit. Let me see. Let me hold smooth really quick. Now let's go to inflate. BIN. No, that's not really gonna do anything for us. I just wanted to see though. And then hold Alt and just kind of like barely tap on it so we can get a little bit more of a taper like that. And I'm getting self-conscious. I just want to check my normal again. Okay, that seems pretty good. Okay. Cool. And then let's make another variation. Let's duplicate that guy. We'll move him this way, and then let's see, we'll just scale him a little bit down like that, and then go back into our draw. BMV, I'm just moving it around to give myself a little bit of a just a little bit like that. Yeah, I mean, that's okay. I want to try and keep, like, I don't really like how it's quite bumpy. I think that these should be, because if we look at our reference again, it's very A lot of them are almost just straight, right? So maybe we do just want to have a couple of straight ones. But for now, let's just say that we'll work with this. I'm trying to get rid of like those little subtle bumps that you see. Okay, one more look, and I'm flipping back and forth right now because I'm on my laptop. I'm actually visiting my niece. She was just born last week, so my daughter has a little cousin already. It's pretty cool. Okay, cool. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, I kind of want. I don't want each of these to have so many points. And we can definitely bring this count down for each blade because remember we're going to be duplicating these several times. And so I think what I might do is I might go back in here to my first one. I'm probably going to do this for all of them. So we're on this middle one right here. Yeah, just making sure. And then I'm just going to go back to our Z plugin, do a nice little decimation master. I'm going to pre-process all. I mentioned this in the last video, but if you have multiple subtools, pre-processing all will handle that for you instead of just current, which would only be this one subtool. So let's go back, and I think the way that I'm going to make this call is I'm going to turn my normal material on, and then let's say I want this to be, because what are we at right now? What? Why is it not showing me? So this one's at 663,840. So let's say that 1,000 would be all we want for each one. And then let's just go to Z plugin and decimate that. Okay, so that's actually not bad at all. You can see if I turn off our normal, you can see that it's condensed it quite a lot. So I think that's good. I think 1,000 is a good number. Let's go back and let's do it to all of them. We pre-processed all, so we don't need to do that again. So I can just decimate my current subtool. And then let me just make sure that it did it. Yep, it sure did. Let's go back to our first one. And again, when I decimate, I just want to make sure that I'm not losing like an insane amount of sculpting detail. There's not a lot of detail to lose here in the first place because as you can see, we only really did just a nice line down the middle for that little indentation. But if you were doing something else that required, like our trunk, we would definitely want to retain our sculpting details. So that's really important. Okay, so let's start duplicating these. So I'm gonna go to rotate. Sorry, this is so silly. I'm used to the new Zbrush because that's what I've been using at work. So if oh yeah, okay, this is how this one works. And then, so the way I moved my pivot is all I did was I just went up here, clicked, and I dragged, and I held Shift to keep it orthogonal. So I just want to get like this small base right there and then just kind of drag it out like that. Let's duplicate this and then let's go to rotate and let's just rotate this guy. And then let me just kind of like move it a little bit. We might need to bring it out a little bit, but that's okay. Let's move this one into place. You can really just drag anywhere to reposition, and then let's rotate this guy here. Basically, wherever you click is wherever the pivot's going to start at. And now you can see we're starting to get like that crossover effect that we were doing before, um, which is good. So maybe this way will work better for us. And then we can always just go back in here and upscale and downscale, of course. I'm gonna rotate. So this is kind of my this is why I like doing plants. Is for this reason is I get to like actually start dressing up the plant, and I don't know, it's just cool. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. So all I'm doing again is I'm just clicking here to establish my pivot point, and then I'm just rotating. Cool, and now you can kind of see that we have this. Let's turn our normal map on just to see. And yeah, you can see that we have this nice looking kind of stringy effect that these uh, that our reference has. You know, it's starting to come together a little bit. So I'm just for safekeeping for now. I'm going to keep these all as individual subtools, and I'm just going to keep on duplicating and rotating. So if you guys want, feel free to skip ahead. Um, because a lot of this right now is just going to be me rotating and scaling to my heart's content. I'm going to move that back a little bit. And I think as well we can kind of like we can kind of break up exactly where each one of them starts so that it doesn't all necessarily, I mean obviously they all do come to a point, but you know maybe we can like move this one ever so slightly right here. And it also has to do a lot with how this plant grows. When I was doing my research, it actually, whoops, I was under move, and that's why it didn't work. It was actually, they actually grow out of this like kind of condensed version of a stem, and that's when they start to spread out. But since we're looking at this from the top, we really wouldn't see that. Um, and because it is such a small piece to this plant, you know, like I would say it doesn't matter incredibly too much how we approach it, just as long as we achieve our goal in the end. So just moving and rotating. I was considering being one of those tutorial guys where I go, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this for a bit, and then I'll come back when all this is laid out. But I don't know. If you're like me, I just like to see literally the entire process. I like to see like, okay, what is he thinking when he's making these decisions? Why is he doing it this way? And it, you know, this might be a kind of minute example, but I like to see that. I like to see how other artists, you know, like what they're thinking and almost like a classroom. In college, I would always be that guy who kind of not interrupts, but I'm always asking questions like, well, how did you get here? Why did you do it this way? That doesn't really make sense to me, and stuff like that. So again, if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but I told you guys that I was going to show you the entire process, and that is what I intend on doing, is showing you the entire process. So, oops, just gonna rotate that. I'm just kind of like thinking about how large I want this texture to be, you can start to go into your side view even and kind of start moving. I'm holding shift to lock it in this direction. I'm just kind of moving it so I don't get like this really crazy buildup and overlap. I'm just going to check my normal one more time to make sure it's doing what I want it to. That looks pretty good. Looks good to me. So let's keep it going. Um, let's go to rotate. And so obviously, the whole reason that we're doing this is to be able to bake this out onto a quad, right? And because obviously, in reality, our game would not be able to run uh, all of this geometry at once. Maybe someday, but not right now. And plus, it's just inefficient. You wouldn't want to do that. Um, anyways, what I was where I was going with this was eventually we're going to be generating a height map, a normal map, and a really basic color map, albedo, whatever you want to call it. And I was always really super just uncomfortable with poly painting in Zbrush. And if you guys are too, that's totally fine. Um, just remember that we're going to be doing this because we just need a starting point for our color. And Substance Designer is going to be the key to generating like a really nice looking set of texture maps. So this is a process, and that's okay. That is okay if you're just like, well, I have never poly painted before. Hopefully I can show you guys a pretty easy way to do it. In fact, I probably should have done it uh, before we even started duplicating these all around, because ideally you would want to you know keep keep this consistent. But if we can't figure out poly paint here because it's been decimated, that's okay. I think we can definitely fix it in Substance Designer anyways. So I'm not gonna worry about it too much, and I'll show you guys obviously how to do that. And if you're like me, I mean, I understand Substance Designer. Sorry, let me rephrase. Obviously, the first time I picked up Substance Designer, it was it was a challenge because I had, you're learning a new program. It's not easy. But what I mean to say is Substance Designer, for me at least, is easy to understand. And if you've ever worked with it, you'll know that it's based on a node network system, kind of similar to how Unreal's material editor works. And the way I like to think about it is it's almost like a uh, a stream. Everything starts from the left, goes to the right, and it flows downstream. And if you do something here, it will affect it all the way down here. So don't sweat about it too much. I'm going to be walking everyone through that as well. And even if you've never used Substance Designer, you should, because it's a fantastic, fantastic tool. And oftentimes when I'm trying to think of how to solve problems, I always find myself coming back to Substance Designer a lot. So it's good. It's a good tool. Just again, just checking my normal, making sure everything's looking good. Let's duplicate that one. And you can see that I'm just focusing on breaking everything up, scaling when I need to. Maybe this one's a little longer, like that. Move it over here. Let's duplicate that one. Let's rotate him. He's on very top. And then maybe we'll scale him down a little bit. I find this process pretty therapeutic. When I'm sculpting canopies, I kind of just put on some music, and because when I first started using ZBrush, everything looked like crap. It looked so bad, and I think that's just one of my buddies. He's a character artist, and I would watch him. Start his sculpts, and it always just kind of blew my mind how he could take just a lump of clay and turn it into something so freaking awesome. And I'm like, dude, how do you even approach something like that? And he's like, you just gotta keep doing it, man. Like, keep seeing what works, what doesn't work, and eventually you'll get there. And I think it's kind of the same thing. The first plant I ever made looked like complete garbage, but if you really like it and you want to keep getting better and you want to learn how to do it, you will find a way to make it look better. Um, so that's kind of my 2 cents on ZBrush. But I mean, even now you can see that right now I'm really not doing a ton of sculpting. All I'm doing is moving, rotating, and scaling, right? The only sculpting that we really did was in the beginning, and it was one line. And even when it came to our trunk, it was more about just kind of building off of that same concept of starting with a basic shape and then adding more basic shapes onto that basic shape. Sorry, I was looking for a particular leaf there. Oops. Stuck in move. And I grabbed the one that I didn't want to grab, but that's okay. Just kind of trying to make this a little bit denser. So you can see now I'm starting to get some density in the middle here, so I'm actually going to start like moving these out to where it kind of looks like they're coming out of another layer underneath the main layer, if that makes sense. Let's try this one. So I guess what I mean is this. So normally before we had all this density in the middle, I would stack it up in the middle, but I think now that we have that, we can actually start to very carefully kind of move this towards here, and then my theory is that maybe it's kind of giving the impression that there's like a second layer that's happening underneath this layer, and it gives us a little bit more depth, Let's duplicate that. I'm also noticing that I'm pretty much using only the same piece, and depending on how you feel, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Um, I think after we get the density that we want with this, we can always just go back and just start kind of like shifting things and moving things around until it's just right. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. I mean, eh, you know, I all I'm really trying to do is just show people how I approach foliage and hope that you guys can um, you guys can take something away from it, even if it's like even if it's something that you already knew. You know, maybe during this series you saw something and you're like, oh, I never thought of doing it that way before. That's kind of cool. You know, that's all I'm really trying to do. Pay it forward. And also, in my mind, I'm thinking that by showing you literally every second of this tutorial or of this process is helpful. Maybe it's not. Maybe you guys will kind of hate me for it. And if you guys say, hey, this is too much, then cool. I just won't do it that way anymore. But I'm just kind of thought I would start from my own experiences of watching tutorials. I would always, I guess the good thing, right, is that you at home, you can always just jump ahead. It's not like it's not like anyone's forcing you to. In fact, I probably should offer you guys like timestamps. Maybe I'll do that. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, so I'm starting to get that density that I'm pretty satisfied with. I would even say that we only really need like one or two more. One or two more. Um, and then, I'm also just seeing if I can get a little bit more crossing action going in there. Maybe not. See, I'm doing a little thing where maybe that's. I mean, I don't think you're ever gonna notice that, but I just want like some of these to be crossing over one another, and so just move that like slightly over. Anyways, it's kind of cool. Looks like a root system, and that is not too bad. Um, I'm also thinking about when we're going to be laying this out in our cards. I'm also trying to think about like we might want to leave some open spaces and not have it be completely dense because we're going to be duplicating these cards a couple times, right? So uh, that might be good to do, and I think that that's what we're going to do actually. So I would say that this is done. So okay. So what I want to do now is I also want to just bake out just one blade like this because we're going to be mapping these to cards as well. And this is between this being a card and this entire bunch being a card, it will definitely help us break up like the silhouette because with the method that I've been talking about how to lay these cards out, um, I can already tell that there's going to be areas where you can probably notice that they are cards. So I want to do my best to break up that edge condition. And you guys will see that when we get to it. But anyways, that's the reason why I'm wanting to bake out maybe like one or two of these guys by themselves. So I'm gonna move, oops, I'm gonna move this over here. Is that the same one? I hope that's not the same one. Yeah, I think that's good. And probably bump the scale up to be relatively the same. Is that the same one? I don't think it is. No, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. I'm just trying to think. Let's do something like, yeah, this is fine. Okay. So with what we have now, also, holy crap, I need to save because if y'all remember last time, let's call this 01 ponytail palm canopy. Let's hit save. Okay, shortcut, yes, that's fine, thanks. All right, so, like I was saying before, technically now we have a version of a height map and a version of a normal map. So if I were to take this alpha, click alpha and go to grab doc, this would be our quote unquote height map. So you can see there's like varying areas of depth there, the white being the closest to us and then the kind of darker colors being further away. And that's fine because we're gonna just kind of use that as a base to work off of in Substance Designer. And also the version of our normal map would just be this, right? And all we need to do is go to render best. But what we need now is we need to have a version of our color map. And this is just to kind of get the base values of what we need for this card. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save another version of this, and I'm going to call it canopy underscore combine. And that's because we're going to be merging all of these together. And so I'm going to turn that guy, wait, I'm sorry. Let me see. Turn him off and then turn, actually let's move this all the way down the stack, all the way to the bottom. And you'll see why I'm doing that in a second. And then I need to find where this other one was. Sorry guys, let me see. So this would probably be a good time to mention that naming your subtools is a good thing. And you know what? I'm starting to think that it's okay. Maybe we'll just combine it all. It's fine. Sorry, I'm looking for... Holy cow. Okay, you know what? That's fine. Let's just go up here to the top. Oh, there he is. Let's move him back down. So these two leaves that we have on the side are these two by themselves. I'm actually going to rename this to, I don't know, leaf 1, and then let's rename him to leaf 2. So I'm going to merge all of these except for leaf 1 and leaf 2, and that's because I might still need to move these around and arrange them on my texture. So let's scroll back up and go to our top one, and then let's go down here to merge. merge down, and I'm going to hit always OK. And then I'm just going to keep pressing merge down until we get to leaf 1. So all I'm doing is clicking, and all this is doing is it's basically attaching these subtools together. Cool. And there is a way to go back and undo what we just did, even though Zbrush said that it's not an undoable operation. It's a command called split, and it's right here, but it doesn't particularly work all the time, and I'm not wanting to do that, so just know that it's there as an option. So let's try and get just a regular base color here. Okay, so what we can do is we can pick a color. I'm actually going to do like kind of this pale green, sorry. And then I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to go to color and then fill object. So now effectively what that's done is it's allowed us to go and select another color and be able to paint some details onto this. So let's try and match this color again because I forgot to fill these 2 leaves off on the side. Dang it. I think that there's a color eyedrop sampler, but it's okay. I don't know, something like that. That's fine. And let's select this subtool over here and let's just go to color, fill object, and then let's do the same thing for leaf 2, color, fill object. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is let's go take a look at our reference again. A lot of these are really kind of like yellow green. So I want to get some yellows in there, and I want to get some more green, obviously. So I also kind of want to like taper some of it out. So let's go over here and kind of let's just select like a more green, and then let's go to draw, turn off Z add, and you'll see that RGB intensity is at 100. So pretty much what that means is, oops. I'm trying to figure out why. Oh, I'm sorry. That's because we have our move brush still on. So let's just go to our standard brush, BST, and then make sure Z add is off, and then turn RGB on. And now you'll see that as we press down, it adds our color and only our color to this. So what I want to do is essentially what I just did, and that's just kind of like slowly kind of start to add a radial layer of like bright green, and it kind of like follows out onto the edges of the leaves here, right? So, and then we'll taper that out with like a nice yellow on top, and then we'll keep that like kind of pale green towards the end, and that'll be a great starting point for us. So you can kind of see like we have like a gradient of bright green to like an olive green. Let's do the same thing here. I'm just gonna like take this out like so, and then same thing here. Yes, I like that. Okay, and then let's grab a yellow. Let's grab a yellow, and essentially what's gonna happen is we're gonna kind of like just start our yellows and have the yellows meet up in the middle. So hold on, let me just make sure that this is working. Okay, some reason. Hold on. Okay, so let me just. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's. I'm silly. That's because I'm on my other leaf subtool. So we have to select this one, and now we get that. Okay. So let's again. Sorry. Let's grab that yellow. Kind of like, yeah, that's good. And I'm just gonna like slowly have our yellow go into the middle here of our canopy. So I want to retain some of that green underneath, obviously, but typically as these leaves grow, the ends are what become dead and white first. And so that's why we want like a gradient of life green / yellow out to like a more dead green, almost like a white. And I'm starting not to like that, so I actually think I might keep that middle a little bit more green. So something like that is good. Okay. And this is completely, I'm not going to say arbitrary. It's just giving us a base to work off of when we take this into Substance Designer. So do not get super attached to this and think that this is the end all be all, because it is certainly not. Let me grab that yellow again, and then just kind of like split the difference between. Yeah, that's good. Leaf 2 right here. And also, some of these leaves become brown and white towards the tips, and that's when like a leaf has started to die. So we might even want to like incorporate some white towards the edges, the tips of our leaves right there. Okay. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I think this will work just fine for us. And hopefully this is making sense to you guys. I'm just doing the same thing, same premise as like what our sculpt was, which was establish a base and work off of that base. So I established this kind of like olive green, and I just kind of added onto it. So cool. Okay, and then maybe leaf 1 is like more dead than leaf 2, so something like that. Cool. And I think that that's going to work just fine for us. Yeah, just double checking my normal. And I think that's going to be just fine, you guys. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to insert a plane in here and then bake this out. So let's go over here and let's select append, and let's append a plane 3D, and it will, okay, it's right there. So sometimes Zbrush does this thing. So I need to rotate this plane. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's right there. Let me see here. So what I can do is I can actually go into like a side view, select this, like my top tool, and then drag out my rotation, hold shift, and then select my plane, and we know that it needs to rotate 90 degrees upward. So something like that. And I just clicked and dragged it. And then also what I want to do is I want to move. I'm holding shift. I want to get like just enough to where I can get a little bit of ambient occlusion, which is like that self shadowing onto the actual plane itself from the leaf. leaf bunch. So now let's go to scale, and we're gonna scale this plane up, and we're gonna move it. And also, I'm gonna save because for whatever reason, ZBrush hates me. No, I'm kidding. But sometimes there's this bug where when you move things around quickly, it'll crash. So I always like to be just extra careful. Okay. And what I'm doing essentially is I'm treating this as if this were my texture sheet, right? And we could probably be more efficient than this if we wanted to. We could probably like do another version of this canopy, and then maybe even add like some of those let me see if I can show you guys. Where did it go? Anyways, they're like these little kind of bulb stem things that these leaves pop out of. We could have modeled one and then baked one out to the texture, but I don't think that's going to be too helpful with how this asset's going to be being used. So I'm just going to stick with this for now. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to pick where I could fit these leaves here, and I want to make sure that I can leave room for a edge cut right along there, just as long as I can have a straight line. I might need to move my plane a little bit or make it a little bit bigger. Let's scale that up just a tad, and then yeah, that will definitely work. So something like that. And then let's go to our leaf 1 and let's move him. We should be able to fit a straight line all the way down here. I think that will work. Titans just scored. Okay, this might be a little tight, but we also want like the max amount of resolution that we can get out of this. So here, let's scale this one down just a tad, and then let's move him over a little bit, or maybe even like maybe we could even take him down. No, that's not gonna work either. Let's just try this. If it doesn't work, we can come back in and fix it, but I think that'll be enough. So, okay. And with that, you guys, we are ready to bake out our first couple of base textures for this guy. So, let's go to our plane 3D, and then let's hit F. And what that does is it focuses in on our asset here. Sorry, the plane, and then let's hit F one more time, and that will completely envelop our space. And now we need to do is just extract those textures that I was talking about. So this is why I resized our document to a 2048 by 2048, because that effectively will give us a 2K resolution texture. So to render out our base color here, let's just go up to texture. Sorry, go to render first. Go to flat, because as we know, albedo doesn't have any normal information or any kind of ambient occlusion or anything like that. And this is our texture. One more thing that I also forgot to mention, we might want to color this plane a green color so that we don't get any what's called alpha bleed. And you don't want any of like this white pixel to show up on the edges of our leaves, because that would look really bad. So I just want to grab like maybe something like that, just to keep our texture colors consistent. So once we've done that, we can now go to texture and grab doc, and then we can hit export texture. So let's make a folder and let's call this texture sheets. And then let's call this one 01 ponytail palm canopy underscore texture BC for base color. The image contains material. Would you like to save material index as a separate channel? I'm gonna hit no. I think it's fine to embed that, and we're only using this, temporarily to drive our graph. So let's go back to now we need our normal map, right? So let's go back to our material and then hit that normal. And you'll see that nothing has happened, and that's because we should change our rendering mode to best. So let's go to render and then hit best. And the reason why is because you can actually download a more accurate normal material for Zbrush, but Jeremy went over this and he was saying that this one is accurate, you just have to render best. So that's what we're gonna do, and it'll take a minute, but you can see that it's rendering out our normal map fairly slowly, just chugging along. Here we go. Doing good, you guys. Almost there. Almost there. Almost there. And there we go. So now after we've rendered that at our best quality, now we're going to go to texture again, and then we're going to grab that doc. So now it's grabbed our normal for us, and then we're going to export that. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to go underscore text -n for normal. And then finally, our very basic version of our height map, all we need to do is go to alpha. Actually, first let's turn texture off. Let's go to alpha and then grab that doc. And then we can click alpha again and then export that. So that is going to be our version of our height map that we're going to use to drive like our roughness map, our ambient occlusion map, and a couple other cool nodes that I'll show you guys in Substance Designer. So let's just hit save. And with that, I think we're good to begin generating the rest of our maps and getting a nice looking base color normal. We'll definitely do some work to our base color as well as our ambient occlusion. So hopefully you guys found this pretty useful. It's a fairly simple canopy, but I think it's going to do the trick for us once we map it to a nice piece of geometry. So in the next video, I'll go over generating the rest of those maps with you in Substance Designer. So with that, I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.